After 12 games of the World Chess Championship match, everything still even. Sergei Karjakin, the challenger, had won game 8. Magnus Carlsen had hit back in game 10, and all the other games were drawn. So that meant that after these 12 classical games, the players today played a tiebreaker. And that consisted of 4 rapid play games. That means rapid play means 25 minutes per player, and they get 10 additional seconds each time they make a move. In the first game, Karjakin had white. He got nothing out of the opening. Carlsen equalised easily, and game ended in a fairly uninteresting draw. Second game, Carlsen with white. He really pressed and got some advantage, went into a very favourable endgame. And we can see this is the position after 40 moves. Carlsen has 2 bishops against a rook and 3 against 3 on the king side. Now, of course, with so few pawns on the board, Karjakin with black has drawing chances, but actually this should be winning for white. However, it is extremely difficult, very technical, and there are some parts of the game where you really have to calculate extremely well, and of course in a rapid play game, very, very difficult indeed. There are a couple of moments, let me move 30 odd moves on in the game. There are a couple of moments in this game where the computer assessment kind of flickered into winning for white, not just favourable for white, and this was one of those moments. Here you can see that Carlsen made fantastic progress. He's managed to get his king into this superb square, but he's not there yet. Here he played bishop d6. He could have checked and then brought the bishop here. That's the key square. So bishop and king threatening the pawn at the moment, covered by the rook. But, well, if the rook just moves and waits, then bishop here, and now bishop takes pawn is mate. So that should be winning for white. Instead, well, you know, this is incredibly difficult. Both players were down to their final seconds, and technically this is so difficult. I mean, it was incredible how well Karjakin defended this position, and the finish was extraordinary. Carlsen tried one final effort to get to that g7 pawn, and here, short of time, I mean nothing on the clock, Karjakin first of all gave up this pawn, then he gave up a second pawn, and then he gave up his rook. Well, you might think he's gone completely mad. In fact, this was brilliant defensive play once again from Karjakin. He realised that this position is a dead draw because with these rook's pawns, the bishop is the wrong colour. You need a bishop with this colour to force the king out of the way. This is a draw. Black's king is stalemated here. There's only one piece that black can move, and that's the pawn. It advanced. Now, whichever way you take this pawn, it's draw. It's a draw by stalemate. King is not in check, but it has no legal move. Stalemate. It's a draw. So after 2 games, 2 draws, nothing seemed to be able to separate these players. I mean, it's incredible. Carlsen came so close here. Karjakin went down to his final pawn. Carlsen still couldn't win. He must have been going crazy in between the games. I should add, the players only had 10 minutes between these games to kind of gather themselves again for the next game. So really tough on them. 2 draws after 2 games. Let's head for game 3. Now, this was strategically very, very complex. You can see Carlsen has his wonderful pawn chain here with black. Carlsen with black. That gives him some room on the king side. But Karjakin has the 2 bishops. This bishop, if it can get into these light squares, could be good. This knight is pretty well placed here. So just very rich position. But here, well, Carlsen really seized the moment. I mean, this was a very brave move because it really kind of explodes the position on the queen side. Starts to take the initiative, and this really breaks up White's pawns. Now, White has a lot of options here, which was tough on Karjakin because once again he was falling short of time. This was the real pattern in these first 3 games. Karjakin running very short of time. Bishop d2 connects the rooks. Karjakin didn't want to give up that open A file. Pawns exchanged, and now that meant the knight could sit on this fantastic square e3 supported by the pawn, hitting the rook. The rook moved across. I still thought this was okay for Karjakin. He's still got a blockade here, and if he could bring the bishop back to perhaps exchange off that knight, I thought White should be all right. Okay, how did Carlsen deal with this? Well, first of all, he exchanged rooks and brought the queen back. So that queen is hitting this pawn here. I thought he might be angling to bring the queen round here as well. But let's see. First of all, he hit this pawn. That was defended. Now he nudged the king into the corner. The point of that is that now he threatens to take the pawn on d5. Now there would be no pin here. So that meant that Karjakin had to exchange off this knight in order to keep his pawn on d5. And that introduces a new possibility for Carlsen. This rook came up the board. Now, fantastic idea from the world champion. He sacrificed a pawn. This had to be taken, and then Carlsen exchanged bishops and moved the queen into this fantastic square. I mean, what a beautiful square. Hitting the rook retreated, and the rook came to a8. So let's see what black has for this pawn. Well, first of all, an amazing queen here, centralized, looking down this diagonal. He's managed to activate his rook onto an open file, and in combination with this knight, black's pieces look absolutely fantastic. For one pawn, this is a bargain. Okay, let's see what's happening with white. Well, an extra pawn, but apart from that miserable position, that bishop is like a big pawn itself, blocked in by its own pawn chain. It doesn't have any support either. It has to be defended by white's pieces. And look out for white's king. Because that f-pawn is advanced, the second rank is permanently weak. Karjakin was running really short of time, and this is so difficult to defend. First of all, he created an escape square for his king. Good idea. Carlsen did the same, very prudent, before he starts moving this rook up the board, and make sure that his king has an escape square. King advanced. Queen d4, so now Carlsen starts to kind of wheedle his way into the position. Very nice. The queen came back. That's a tricky move from Karjakin. Even short of time, he's producing little tricks. He's hoping that the knight will take the bishop. But then the queen comes up, and that's a pin, and white is going to take this knight and should be doing fine. But Carlsen resisted that one. He was playing very quickly by this stage. Hits the second rank, so knight and queen attacking g2. So the bishop came back to defect, and now rook a2, and this looks absolutely dreadful for white. All three pieces hitting the weak pawn on g2. Karjakin can actually survive here if he just nudges that queen out of the way. The queen would have to retreat. I mean, black obviously has enormous amount of pressure here. Very hard to defend, but that's the only way for white to go. Instead, Karjakin cracked. He just took the pawn here. I mean, black can win in a couple of ways. He could just take the pawn on g2, but Carlsen found the most effective, the most clinical way of finishing the game. The rook hits the queen and the queen simply can't move away, because that is going to lead to a very swift checkmate. So basically after rook a1, the queen is lost, can't move away. White resigned here. So after 3 games, Magnus Carlsen took the lead. So in this 4th game, Karjakin had to win. He had to win to make it 2-2, and then they go into the blitz tiebreaks. But Carlsen played just a masterful game. He kept control the whole way, and Karjakin's attempts to complicate the position became ever more desperate. Here, the position after 46 moves, Karjakin very short of time again. Carlsen the exchange up. And he's got things under control. He has to watch his second rank a little bit. But he calculated extremely well. He played queen takes f4 in this position. Now, obviously, if the queens are exchanged, white is a rook for a bishop up and should win comfortably. So Karjakin checked on the second rank. Now you've got to be careful. If the king steps carelessly, then that's checkmate. But no, the king just edged back into the corner. Now, once again, if the queens are exchanged, white wins. So Karjakin had to keep up the pressure. And now, here, if Carlsen wanted to, he could just nudge the queen back, protecting this square, and that's safe enough. But he calculated brilliantly at this point. First of all, he gave a check. If the bishop steps in the way, then that leads to a very swift checkmate. So the king stepped up the board, and now Magnus Carlsen played queen to h6 check. Boom! And that was the end of the match. What a way to finish. If that's taken by the king, rook h8 mate. If it's taken by the pawn, rook takes f7 is mate. Well, I think I'm just going to leave that position on the board. What a picture. What a way to go out. So Magnus Carlsen retains his world title, and in this playoff he really did demonstrate, well, cool nerves, also ambition and great enterprise and creativity, and he fully deserved to win the playoff. As for Karjakin, well, he couldn't seem to get out of his rather defensive mindset, and yeah, he was rather disappointing in this playoff, although I have to say he did incredibly well in this match, and I think he surprised many people with how well he acquitted himself overall. But there we go. Magnus Carlsen retains the title, and congratulations to him.